So I did a couple of reviews of products and wrote a couple of articles. As a consequence, when I was working in this shop in London, I got a phone call from one of the companies I'd written a review of a product. It was a turntable, a record player, which you guys should know what they are. You're just about old enough. They're coming back, boys. Hey.
Yeah.
So I ended up working for this guy. These guys said, "Can you come up and be our marketing manager?" Well, I'd never done marketing in my life. So I'd done an economics degree, but that's nothing to do with marketing. So I went up there it was to Warwick. I got interviewed and I got the job, and it was decently paid. I got a car and I was 22 or 23 years old. It was crazy. I spent the next 2 years going mad trying to sell this product, and we sold too many, actually. We made a classic mistake in business, which is called over trading, where you sell more than you can deliver. We had massive supply problems, quality problems more than anything. We could get the stuff, but none of it was good enough quality. So we were putting a product out to market that wasn't good, didn't do our name very much good. And in the end, we decided to voluntarily close the business down and reopen it when we got the supply chain right. Whilst we were closed, I got another call from another friend saying, just talking, and we always chatted for like 2 hours at a time, stupid conversations about everything in the world, particularly music, girls, everything else. And at the very end of the conversation, we're just signing off. And I said, "Oh, by the way, I haven't got a job at the moment." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, we've decided to shut the business down. We're going to open again in the summer." And this was February, I think. And he turned around and said, "Well, you should come and work for me." And he had a car audio business. And I just turned around and said, "I'm never going to work for you." I said, "Why don't I work with you? Why don't we set something up together? We could set up a domestic hi-fi shop, something like that." And he said, "Well, yeah, if you think that'll work." And I said, "Yeah, okay." Next day, I drove down to High Wycombe, which is where he lived. I walked around the estate agents. I saw a shop, which I thought looked quite interesting. Went into an agent's, asked them about it, because the agent was right next to where I was standing. And they said, "Yeah, sure, but it's an office. It's not a shop." I said, "What do you mean?" "It's got loads of offices above. So it's for solicitors or something like that." It was actually perfect for what we wanted to do. We wanted a little shop to show things. Upstairs, we'd have demonstration rooms and all the rest of it. Suffice to say, this turned into a fantastic success. The next 6-7 years, I had a fantastic time. I was making decent money. We sold loads of stuff. It worked. And I never quite know what it is that makes things work like that. What I do know is that your own personality is key. You have to be able to be the big person that fronts that business, that makes the confidence behind your business. And confidence is absolutely key. I was confident to the point of being cocky. I thought I knew everything. Yeah, thought the world was mine. I owned everything. I was almost like a teenager in my 20s. And I guess that made me win some confidence amongst people I spoke to. So when we went to see bank managers, the first bank manager turned around and said no. The second one said, "I like your idea. I'll give you 17,000 quid loan," which is what we needed. We paid it back within 3 months because we were trading positively. We were getting money in from customers before we had to pay our bills. So we had a positive cash flow, which again is the thing you learn really early on in any kind of business. Cash is king. It's not just a statement. Don't ever just think of it as being something people say. It is absolutely vital. If you run out of cash, your business stops. End. So keep that one always at the front of your mind. So it doesn't matter what else you do. If you can stop paying people, if you can do anything, save your business, you have to do it. You will have to pay them in the end. Get a holiday or whatever you need to do. Make sure cash is coming in. So then I spent, as I say, 6 or 7 years doing that. And then came my first kind of disaster, really. I went on a long weekend on a holiday. And just before this, a couple of months before, my partner had been asking me if I wanted to buy the hi-fi side off of him and leave him with the car audio business, which I thought was a nice idea. So I started the negotiations with him, and we were kind of in that bartering place where I was saying, I don't know what it was, 25,000. He was saying he wanted 40, and I was planning to come back and say 32 or whatever it was. and hope he'd say yes. And then he turned around to me just before I was going on holiday. So, well, what if I buy the hi-fi business off of you? And I said, well, I don't know. Why would you want to do that? That means I don't have anything. Anyway, suffice to say, when I came back off the holiday, I went back to my business, and he changed the locks. I couldn't get in. He basically frozen me out the business. And there was nothing I could really do. I had a very weak partnership agreement. Again, next lesson, use lawyers, get something proper. If you ever go into business with anybody, make sure you have proper advice. Make sure you have proper ways of breaking up a partnership or breaking up a limited company that are totally fair to each of the people in there. I was completely screwed, and I was naive when I was 25 years old when I set that business up. And at no stage during it did I realize there was a risk to me. I just thought everything was fine. It could just carry on, but it wasn't. We picked an off-the-shelf partnership agreement that had no proper cover, no safety net. So that was my first very, very big lesson. So then, I was out of a job, didn't know what to do. Did a bit with my brother. He had a sort of little business venture, which I did with him for a few months, and that helped me out a bit. But the best thing the best thing at that time that happened to me was, again, this then comes down to the next thing, connections. Try to make sure you have connections. Brandon, you're a brilliant connector. You will always have connections. You're always working the field. You're working your network. It is so vital. And that isn't naturally me. I'm not someone who feels comfortable going out building a network. I'm the person at a party that stands in the corner. I don't really like mingling with people I don't know. I find it difficult. I find it hard to do small talk. I tend to bore people with the stuff I know, and that's about it. Build connections. Make sure there are people in the background always that you might be able to turn to one day. So my story, I went to the lawyers one day and they told me that there's nothing I could really do about my business. What he'd offered me was a fair settlement, which was basically nothing, but that was the way it worked. And I had to move on with my life. So I actually drove to London one day to see a guy that had been a customer of mine, and he'd actually also been the owner or one of the shareholders of the very first company I worked for, the company making the turntables. I thought I'd just go and knock on his door and ask him how he could help me. So I knocked on his door and he wasn't in. His maid was there. He had he's a reasonably wealthy guy. And she phoned him up in his office. He put him on the phone. He said, come down and tell me what's happened. So I drove down it was just off Hatton Garden, Holborn. And he had a rather lovely offices. I'd never been there before. And I explained everything to him. I said, look, suddenly this deal went completely wrong, and then I've been screwed. The guys basically shut the business up on me, and that's it. I'm gone. Anyway, turned around, opened a drawer, took out a piece of paper, handed it to me. It was a photograph of a shop. And he said, would this help? I said, what is it? He said, it's a shop. I've got it on Tottenham Court Road. He said, I've always fancied my own hi-fi shop. Oh, okay. 5 weeks later, I was open. I had all the top brands. I had Bang & Olufsen as well, which is a really difficult brand to get. I had all the British brands that I wanted. Oh, I seem to have lost. There we go. And so this was luck, which is your next big lesson. Luck is an amazingly important thing as well. Grab it with both hands. If something looks like it's happening and it looks real, take it. This guy handed me a chance of a lifetime. I was in a pretty bad place. Mentally, I was having issues, but I didn't realize it. I was washing over the fact that I was probably very anxious, struggling a little bit in my early 30s. You guys' age really, and not knowing what I was going to do. And suddenly I was offered a lifeline, grabbed it with both hands, set up a shop on Tottenham Court Road, and for the next 3 years hit every target I was given, and the business was doing quite well. However, here's where all these things start to go wrong if you don't watch out. When I took on the agreement, they put me in this shop which they owned with a very high rent. They gave me a high rent because that meant that everyone around them, when they came to rent reviews, was kind of forced to look at that rent level, and that set the level for that block of properties. If you know Tottenham Court Road and Goose Street Station, there's a Tesco's round the corner. That block is what I was in, and that was all owned by the guy. It's worth about, at the time, about £50 million just for that one block. And the rentals were pretty high anyway. In favour to me for paying such a high rent, I was offered other costs to be taken on by the business. So my car, my service charges, rates, all the rest of it were paid for by the management company that owned this block. After 3 years, when I'd been trading, everything was doing well. I thought I was doing brilliantly. We had about 80 grand in the bank, I remember, and I was earning a decent salary. I was building up a share value of the business. They took on a new finance director for the company, and he turned around and said what they were doing was not illegal, but it was against normal accounting practices. And suddenly all these costs that I'd been saving, if you like, were suddenly landed into my account. And I went from having 70-odd thousand pound in the bank to minus 120-odd thousand pounds in the bank.
Wow.
And that was a pretty big blow. The guy was a good friend, the bloke who owned the building. He was very sorry about it because he hadn't done it maliciously or anything like that. And I just decided that I couldn't cope with the idea of flogging this business for another few years to try to get it back to what would be a profitable place. It was just too hard work. I knew I was at the point where I was running the business as hard as it could be run, and it was no longer going to make money. So again, I had to make a decision, and my decision was to get out. Long and short of it, I worked as a consultant for a business for a year. You know, you end up clutching at straws, and after a while decided I need a break. So I actually bought a ticket. It was almost like, you know, what's that story? What's the film about Willy Wonka with the golden ticket and the kids who all win the golden ticket? I wanted to travel. I wanted to go somewhere warm, and it was December. And I thought, where the hell's warm in December? I've got to go to the Southern Hemisphere. It's miles away. And I was looking through in the Times newspaper, I think it might have been the Telegraph, I don't know. And up in the top right-hand corner in the sort of travel bit, there was a little ad that said, round the world ticket, unlimited stops, £1,000. And it was a Manchester number. So I phoned this Manchester place. It was a travel agent. And I said, this seems quite good. Unlimited stops. He said, yeah. He said, don't worry about it. What we'll do, you give us a route. And then if you decide to change any time on your route, just call us up and we'll change your ticket. All right. I said, how long does it last? He said, well, how long you're out there, really? There's no limit. Don't worry. Just go as long as you want. So I bought this ticket, and it was exactly what it seems. I kept phoning them up and saying, look, I don't want to go here anymore. Can I change it? At one point, I was in Australia, completely forgotten I was meant to leave Australia and overstayed my welcome and missed my flight. Called them up and said, look, I missed the flight. He said, oh, don't worry about that. We'll sort you out another one. It was just weird. And then again, it's that bit of luck. God knows what that ticket was all about, but it was very, very useful. So I ended up traveling around, and in Australia, I met a girl when I was traveling. We were up in the Northern Territories and traveling together. We ended up traveling for about a couple of months more in Australia, and then traveling back together to the UK. And obviously, when I got back to the UK, I didn't have a job. I had a little bit of money that I made through the consultancy work I'd done, but not a lot. And I couldn't think what to do. So we spent a little while staying in a little cottage that my girlfriend's father had. And that was all well and good, but it was quite idyllic, actually. It was rather lovely up there. But I had to do something. And I was just thinking one day, I thought, I wonder how Fired Earth run their shops. God knows why I thought of that. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. I woke up actually thinking about it. Now, I've lost someone here. There's some, I don't know what's going on. There's some. Who's still on?
We're all on.
Yeah, we're all still here.
Okay, I just had one of those little picked things that showed no one on, someone not actually video, but it doesn't matter. It went very quiet. So anyway,
it's because I'm on twice and one is video.
No problem. Don't worry, no problem. So I was at a loose end, didn't have a business, didn't have a job, didn't have anything. I talked to this company, and they said fun enough, they were just thinking of the idea of doing a licensing scheme, like a franchise. So I thought about it, and we were living up in Herefordshire with my girlfriend's father. And I went to Hereford. Hereford itself, I thought, okay, we could have a look at it, and it might work and all the rest of it. But in the background, I thought a place I knew would work really, really well was Chiswick. I knew the market. When I'd had that little hi-fi shop in Tottenham Court Road, I kind of got a measure of where the good customers came from. And I used to get a lot of good customers from parts of North London. But I got a heck of a lot of good customers from this rather strange little place called Chiswick, which I'd never known before, didn't know it from anything. Didn't seem to have a centre, didn't seem to have any kind of real place about it, but it did seem to have a lot of pretty wealthy people in their 30s and 40s, willing to spend, had the cash to spend. And I thought, well, maybe that's a good place to try something. So secretly went looking for a property in Chiswick without telling Fired Earth. Fired Earth came to see me in Hereford. We looked at shops, and they finally found what we found. When they said, yeah, that'd be fantastic. Why don't you do that? And then I said, well, actually, I don't really want to do Hereford. I want to do Chiswick. And I found a shop in Chiswick. What? Why Chiswick? Well, I think it'd be quite good. So we, they sort of found it a bit weird. They agreed that I could do Chiswick, or Anna and I, my wife and I. Well, my now wife and I, she wasn't there. And after about a couple of weeks, I got a letter from them. And the letter basically said that they were really sorry, but they talked to their property agent. The property agent told them they were crazy letting Chiswick go to a private individual. So suddenly they were reneging on their agreement. And again, another lesson, don't give up. Basically, Anna and I wrote a letter pleading with them on the basis that we thought they were gentlemen. And how could they go? You know, how could they actually agree something and then go back on it? We didn't think that was right, and it worked. I got a phone call saying, "Actually, we agree with you. We were wrong. We should let you have it." We did say yes, and they helped me set this shop up, and it worked. It was fantastic. Again, I guess it comes down to yourself. I know I can sell. Anna was very good. My wife was really good, and we actually got married the same month we opened the shop, which is completely nuts. So we were open for, and we had to get people from Fired Earth in to help run the shop whilst we were getting married. We didn't have a honeymoon. We'd been traveling together for 8 months or 9 months, so we didn't really need one at the time, but it would have been nice. But anyway, so again, it was that sort of right time, right place, but that's not what it is it? It's all about you seeing things. Yeah, being positive and actually observing and seeing a gap or seeing an opening or being desperate maybe and needing something. And so you actually really go out there and find it. What's hardest is when you haven't got a clue or when you're feeling a bit down. If you're feeling a bit down, you don't spot things, you don't see things. So you have to try to keep yourself in a positive frame of mind. So then, yeah, set this thing up and we did brilliantly. Absolutely brilliant. It was fantastic. Except there were changes of management at Fired Earth. And what I originally planned when I set this thing up was that they'd let me do a couple of others. So I was looking at Wimbledon and Hampstead as places where I might set something up. The new management said, no, we're not going to let you do that. You can stay with that one. And so I was a bit stuck. I was doing well. We were making money. We bought a beautiful house in Chiswick. We were, you know, life was looking good. We had a couple of kids and it was a really good time. But I suddenly found myself working too hard. The shop was really good. And then I realized, just like all the other businesses I'd ever done, the shop was me. And trying to actually spread me about a bit and do some other businesses or whatever was actually going to be impossible, because if I stepped away from it, the shop stopped. Because I was the business. And there was no scope in the cash, if you like, of the business, the figures for the business, to allow for me to bring in someone like me. If I brought someone like me in, then I didn't have the money anymore. So I had to keep staying on the front line. I had to keep selling, which meant I was stuck, really. I couldn't build this business. It was an impossible business to build. And this is a real classic situation for a lot of people who start out in business. They build this thing so much around themselves that they can't actually build it at all. There's no margin in there, if you like, to employ people to at the same level to take it to that next level. And in retail, it's a particular problem because you've got quite high property costs, rates, etc., etc. For you guys, the sort of businesses you're running, you can have the same sort of problem again because you price yourself too low. So it's very common for sole traders to price themselves trying to get the business. You need to price yourself at a point where if you want to expand, you can afford to start employing people, because when you can start building. You can't build a business on your own. You can't be a business, if you like. The business has to be you and others if you want it to be successful and actually make you a good living. You'll make a good living on your own, but you won't build a business. So always think about those margins. Make sure those margins are sufficient that if you want to bring someone in who's as good as you, you can. And never be scared to bring someone in who is as good as you. Yeah, don't think about that. It's competition, sure. It just means you've got to take your game up another level. They haven't done what you've done already. They're coming in. They might go off and do their own business later on, but trust me, always bring in good people. Otherwise, you're just going to be doing it all yourself. And that's what you've got to avoid. So anyway, I was doing this for 7 years, I think, 8 years. And it became so busy. We had a little shop. We were turning over £1 million, and it was really, really hard work because I was ending up doing, 3/4 of the sales and designing and going up to people's houses and managing all the building works going on in these places. And I decided that because I couldn't open up other shops, how could I build a business? How could I do anything? And I realized I was sort of stuck. So I went to see this woman who was charged me something like 350 quid for a couple of hours to sit there and chat about how to build your CV or whatever that was, how to become a businessman properly. Sorry, there's a car going by me, which is quite noisy. Thank you. No problem at all. Bye-bye. They've got their muck. So I sat there for 2 or 3 hours with this lady with all this money going out, and I guess I came away and there was one sentence that she'd said that actually really, really hit me. And it was so bloody obvious. And I've kind of told you what it was already. But she just turned around to me and said, you got to learn to work on your business, not for your business. And that absolutely summed up everything that I'd done wrong. In all my businesses I'd had up to that point, I was always working as the front of the business. I was the business in effect. And what you need as a business is kind of this thing, this brand. And you just work for the brand and you work on the brand. You don't want to be the brand. That's a problem. Unless you're something like David Beckham. There's not many of us like that. Where you can just build up huge sums of money by being who you are. And that's just a talent which I never had, even remotely. I saw him on Blue Peter when he did his 2,000 keepy uppies in Guinness Book of Records when he was about 10. And he thought, oh, that's good. What a nice little kid. Now he's close to being a billionaire. But that's with the right people around him selling him. But ultimately, for most of us, that doesn't work. If you want to build that business, you've got to learn to work on it. So you've got to have the time to work on it. So you can't be working in it all the time. So who was the gas engineer?
That would be me, Nathan.
Nathan, yeah. So Nathan, if you think about it, if you want to go out on your own and do this thing, you can go out on your own. You can be charging £200 a day or £250 a day or whatever it is these days a gas engineer will charge. I've got no idea. And you will earn a really good living. Yeah. But if you can get to the point where you've got another guy working for you and you're charging him out at £250 a day, but you're paying him 150, that's when you're going to start to make the real business work. Yeah. And that's when you're going to be able to employ start buying vans that have got your name on it and your business name going, and start to build a business that's, a brand rather than you, the person. And that's it's taking those steps. That step is the big one. My dog jumping into the video there. So how you do that is the difficult bit. And then I came to my next big problem then, because I couldn't get out this business. I had no way of getting out of it. And then again, luck happens. There was a change of MD at Fired Earth. Went to see her, a woman called Beverly Nielsen, and got on really well with her. And after a few months, she phoned me up and she said, "We'd like you to join the board of Fired Earth. Come up here as a director." Like, wow, brilliant. Okay, what am I going to do? She said, "Well, we'll buy the business off you, the shop, and you can come up and work for the board," which I did. And then I found out the big problem of working for a board, and that's that you don't stay there very long if you don't watch out, because they then merged, the owners of Fired Earth merged Fired Earth into a bigger company. So we were all made redundant. So I had my business, I did really well. I took this kind of ego trip up to this board level thing. And then 2 years later, I was out of the job. I did some consultancy work. I bought a mail order company. I ran that for 4 years. I did all sorts of stuff. None of it was very satisfying. It was a big recession, obviously. We had the crunch in 2008-9, which was a disaster. And then 2012, I'd come out of the business I bought. It basically failed through the crunch. It was a bit of an awful time, really difficult time. Didn't know what to do. Heard that they were actually separating Fired Earth out again. So made some very big efforts to get in touch with the guy that was running it. I sent it, I don't know how many emails I sent him. I just kept sending him emails saying, you know, I know I can help you. I know I can help you. I've been there before. I understand the business. Give me a call. And after about, I don't know, 3 or 4 emails, he wrote me one back saying, he said, "I admire your persistence. Come and see me." So I went to see him and he gave me a job. And I spent 2 or 3 years doing something which I felt was below me because I'd done it all before, but I could do it well. So I proved myself. And I got back on the board at Fired Earth. So I was a director again. So I went from being a director in 2005, or whatever it was, 6, back to being a director in 2014. Very weird sort of route. And then even then, you think you're safe, everything's going well. And even then, we had this big disaster. I met Brandon, actually, funnily enough, through all of this, because we took on a product called Virtual Worlds. We had lots of designers in the business, and we were designing bathrooms. And I met Nathan from Virtual Worlds and Brandon, and ended up actually, weirdly, I'll explain. So I'm jumping ahead of myself. Everything was going well. I was doing this job. Our American owners were happy. We were moving along. We had a record year in 2015 and 16. And so, you know, they thought we were great. And then we had a bit of a rogue operations director, and we decided to put a new ERP system in. It's a system that basically runs the whole company. So it's your software for sales, accounts, marketing, everything. It went disastrously wrong. The commissioning was a disaster. They hadn't got it ready. It had loads of bugs in it. And the next 5 months were a hell on earth. Our sales dropped by over 20%. We were really pissing customers off, causing all sorts of problems. Our warehouse was just stacked with orders all over the floors. No one knew where they were meant to go. We were duplicating orders out to customers, losing money all over the place. So the girl was sacked, actually, operations director, and I was in marketing and product, so I didn't really use the system, but I jumped in to try to fix it and spent the next month and a half finding a fix and getting it sorted, basically. And by the end of May, we were at a position where the system worked again, and it looked like things were going to start to turn around. We just had a lot of repair work to do with customers. You know, the reputation had gone down, so there's a lot of work to do, but you know, I had a plan. And then this 23-year-old guy turned up from America. He was the stepson of the CEO, and suddenly he was our MD. And this was the madness time, because he decided to sack everybody. He sacked everybody. He sacked me. He sacked a whole load of us. There was 18 managers and people in the business, in the head office, was sacked. All the skill left the business. It was extraordinary. All the entire marketing team, the finance team, the technical team, buying team, myself, all sacked. And he was going to do all this himself. So the next year, he basically almost wrecked Fired Earth. He took it down another 20%. The business was running at 60-70% of where it was in 2016. It was losing £3.5 million a year. Total disaster. I got the sack, and I ended up working as a consultant with Virtual Worlds. So I was working alongside Brandon in the business, trying to understand again where Virtual Worlds was going, what it was doing. And there's a funny one, because there's a business that's got a guy in who's fantastic, Nathan.
Yeah.
I think Nathan's biggest problem is that Nathan is Nathan, because he sometimes doesn't see stuff that's happening around him and charges in one direction. And hopefully at the moment it's all going in the right direction, but it's so easy to trip up when you work like that. Anyway, I then got invited back to Fired Earth when they decided this 23-year-old had made a few mistakes. So when they realized that the business was still going down and it was not unlikely it was ever going to go up again, they asked me to come around and see if I could effect a turnaround. And we spent the last year and a half really working really hard, and the business has been growing really well. And next year I'm in line to start getting back to profits. And then COVID came along, our next little thing to trip us up. So we're all sitting here now in our gardens, trying to run a business. And it's these sort of things that you can never legislate for these kind of problems coming along. Who the hell thought that this year suddenly we're all going to be sitting at home for months on end with a virus killing tens of thousands of people, and a government that kind of not sure what it's doing, and your business completely screwed? None of us could have anticipated this. So yet another little blip in my life, which I didn't expect. So a lot of work now. I've got the unenviable task now of working out how we're going to try to keep the business going. I've got to make a lot of people redundant, which is a horrible thing to have to do. We've got to think, what sort of trade we're going to have, and we've got to take stock. So at the moment, the focus now is cut costs and try and be ahead of everybody else. So we're hammering our cost structure really, really hard, hitting every single sort of supplier and contractor we use, including Virtual World, Brandon, and saving money wherever we can. It's the desperate times, really, for anyone in business. So, but it's exciting. It's interesting. It's madness when you get these things happen, and they make your day a lot more interesting as a person. They just make it a little bit more anxious as well. So I suppose, as you can tell, I have been on a roller coaster, but my life isn't particularly unusual. I know loads of people who've been through this sort of thing. In fact, the most boring people I know are the people who've had a steady job. They've just had the same job all their lives. I think, how could you possibly have done that? That's got to be so unexciting. And I've had a lot of excitement, a lot of really terrible downs, but some fantastic highs. And I think always, I guess, the thing that's made it for me has been me. I have always thought something out. I've always tried to make something happen for me, because I came from a council house. I didn't have any money. Parents didn't have any money. I had no way of getting money. I didn't have anyone to say, here's 10 grand, son, go off and set yourself a little business up. I had to do it myself. So it was chutzpah. It's going in and, ballsy conversations with people and selling myself. And I suspect, that is always your best way. Be confident, be honest, don't bullshit people. Just do the best job you can. Always work hard. I probably sorry, it sounds like someone else coming for some, honest postman. You can have some if you want. I'll give him a bag.
Start selling this stuff.
So it is the case. Honesty is really, really important. Be honest with your customers, be honest with your suppliers, build all the friendships, build all the connections you can, and always think about cash. That's king. It doesn't matter about profit, it doesn't matter about all those other things. Sure, they matter, but you can have loads of profit and no cash. You know, if you're paying everything too early and the money's not coming in quick enough. So make sure, one of the mistakes I did make actually in the fired earth shop I had was not taking all the cash from the customers all the time. You know, I'd let them give me 70%. And then that last 30% was so bloody difficult to get out of them.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can really get screwed with that. So be diligent, work hard. There's no substitute, and go for everything you can get. There's always another opportunity around the corner.
Yeah.
What more can I say?
No,
But guys, I hope this is kind of, I don't know if it's an inspiration or making you feel anxious, but it's probably a bit of both. So,
no, it's definitely more and more on the inspirational side. I think it's good to see the story from the beginning, because especially with some of the guys on the call, well, most of us on the call, in fact, we're at that stage where, for example, Nathan has started his business and he's just trying to win contracts. But the next stage for him ultimately is to, like you said, maybe take on an apprentice, maybe get that program going, and finding a way to, you know, make it a commercial proposition. With Kane, obviously, he's got the restaurant business. Maybe that's the thing you need to go to next.
Was it converted horse trailer?
No, it's
Yeah, so we have two sides. So we've got the horse trailer where we do kind of street food and things with, and then we do kind of catering for events and weddings and stuff.
And do you have a pitch anywhere for the horse trade? Do you have somewhere where you secured a
Yes,
pitch?
we have a few different places. So we do Aylesbury Market on a Friday, but then we go around and do different offices. We have one in South Bank. We do Green Park in Reading, Sky HQ, a few different places.
Okay. When I was young, I every single holiday from the age of 11, I worked. I literally worked everything, every day of holidays. I never didn't. I ended up working in 20 odd different factories, several farms. I worked in Germany for a summer. I just was always working. And one of those summers, I actually took on an ice cream van. But just the year I passed my test. So I passed my test in February, and I didn't drive again because we didn't have a car. 2 months later, I was driving around an ice cream van all around Aylesbury and the area. It was actually, funny enough, it was on the Bicester Road coming out of Aylesbury. There was a Tony Bell. A family ran Tony Bell vans, and they were all parked up around the back of his house. And I just called them up one day and said, "Can I do it?" And he said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "Well, actually, yeah, we probably got a spare van. If you want, you can do it." So I had an ice cream van for a summer. And again, this was, you know, I didn't ever see myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't even know the word existed at the time. But I guess I've always wanted to work for myself, not for anyone else. You know, it's a fantastic place to be. At the moment, I don't work for myself. I work for a company. I would love to get my hands on that company and own it myself, or be a part owner of it. I just get so much energy from driving my own self business, whatever it is. You know, that gives you so much reward. And you guys, you know, if you can get your own business going, and Kane, you're obviously doing something there already. Is it with a bunch of friends?
No, just myself and my wife.
Oh, cool. Okay, so brilliant. Well done. So did you convert the things yourself?
Yeah, we did most of the work ourselves. So we had some people do the metal work and things. But we did a lot.
Well, send me some images of it one day. I'm really intrigued. I'd love to see what it is like. It sounds good, but it's hard work, isn't it? There's no easy route to money. It's bloody difficult. Is that fair to say?
About 1:30 last night, cleaning my kitchen after selling the tickets.
Yeah, it's all hours. And then again, you start thinking, I can't really afford for anyone to do it, because if I pay someone to do it, I'm not going to make any money. And that's when you start to think, what's the cost structure in this business? And that's where your business plan is vital, that you start thinking ahead, because actually it might work when you have 3 vans. Yeah, I can employ a cleaner. I don't have to do it myself. Or, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's get that thought about what is the business in 5 years' time, not what is it now, what I'm doing, and literally going day to day. Build a plan. Make sure you know where you're going to be in the future, and that's because that's the mistake I made of not thinking about what it would be in the future and how I was going to be able to do it, without having to be the star attraction, if you like.